But for me, at some point, it was overwhelming. It was too much, and it needed to change. Plus, it didn't determine my success at all. It was just me trying to be a perfectionist, and all the self-doubt that was in me that kept me from handing things over, from delegating, from saying, okay, you know what, me as the owner of this business, I also need time to work on the business and not just in the business.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm your host, Shay Wheat, founder of Grace and Ease Productions, where we support business owners and leaders like you to profitably scale your business with events, allowing you to make sales faster with greater predictability and less team burnout. I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest, who actually specializes in guiding leaders to break free from high stress, unsustainable approaches and to step into conscious, balanced leadership. Yes, please. Her unique coaching empowers leaders to build resilience, foster wellness, and create workplace cultures that prioritize both success and well being. She has an approach that combines deep insight with practical tools, helping leaders connect with their authentic vision, transforming the way they lead their teams and organizations. Please help me welcome Carolina Bakker to the Creating Powerful Impact stage. How are you today?
Thank you so much. And what a wonderful introduction. I'm doing super well. And thank you for having me here. Um, I'm so much looking forward to this conversation.
I am too, because I know you're somebody who really understands and personally understands like the toll that leaders experience when we're constantly under like this relentless pressure, the external expectations upon us and how they can, I mean, essentially they just start to erode our confidence and really, if you think about it, it just like disconnects us from our true selves and thus our loved ones. And I've experienced this in the past myself of like just questioning and going, I'm just feeling so detached and numb in what it is that I'm doing right now. Please share with us a little bit about like why is that showing up and how do we get out of it when we're like literally in it?
So, yes, I can totally relate. And I had that disconnect in myself for years. And mostly when I was working in corporate, of course. I mean, besides from being, when you're an entrepreneur and when you're a leader in your own company, you have that pressure that you put on yourself, right? And in corporate is, of course, the external pressure that you have. And it can be tough. So, um, a little bit about myself. Was in that situation. I was in corporate for a long time, on high level positions, and the I got disconnected from just about everything. It cost me relationships. It had cost me friendships. It cost me quality time with my family, and a lot of quality time with my family, but because I was always putting my business first. And in that, I was always feeling a little bit like I was behind. It felt like I was maybe thinking differently or doing things differently. And my peers seemed all to like be running, and I seemed to be like a turtle behind them, thinking, oh, and so for it was just my own feeling for sure, and maybe possibly some tools and tricks that I needed to learn, um, to speed up my process, basically. Um, and I actually also know the other side of it because I'm an entrepreneur. I've been a coach for 15 years already, but not always full time. And when I moved my coaching business into full time, I noticed that I told myself, no more 80 hours a week, no more crazy nights pulling all-nighters, no more weekend work, nothing like that. And I think it took me about a year and a half. And now I can say that without embarrassment, but it took me about a year and a half to make my first 80 hour a week, 80, yes, 80 hour a week again in my own business. The one thing I promised myself I wouldn't do. So I completely, and disconnecting what my husband at some point said when I said, well, at Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, I'm only going to do this one little thing, and then I'll come and crawl back into bed with you, and we can sort of wake up together. And he said, I'm not going to see you until midday. Come on,
Right,
So
exactly. That little thing ends up taking you 4 hours, right? And you're like, fuck, where
yes,
did the time go?
exactly, and that's just it's super fast.
Mhm.
Um, and it happens with so much enthusiasm mostly, and that's what keeps you going, plus you have of course also a pattern that keeps you going. um, but for me at some point it was overwhelming, it was too much. And it needed to change, plus it didn't determine my success at all. It was just me trying to be a perfectionist, and all the self-doubt that was in me that kept me from handing things over, from delegating, from saying, okay, you know what, me as the owner of this business, I also need time to work on the business and not just in the business. But it took me a while to make that shift. Well, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally resonate. And then once you're in it for what you said, what, 15 years. So it's like you're in the business. I've been in this particular business for over 11 years. And so, you get into the moment of like, okay, I know how to do this. I'm good at what it is that I do. But there's just that what I want you to touch on is like for somebody that's in that detached and numb space, what does that mean? What is showing up, and how do we start to move out of it?
So what you will notice is just a general discomfort, right? There is physical discomfort, there is mental discomfort, and there's of course people around you. You notice, if you pay attention, you will notice, and not too much attention. This is quite obvious when you're in it, that your conversations with people start to become a little bit more shallow. And you connect with friends, but after a while you have these awkward silences where you don't know what else to say, because all you can talk about is work. And so there's those are the signs, but it's also the little pain in your shoulder that you have because you've been sitting behind your desk too much. Now, first thing of any change, first thing ever, is to become aware of your behavior, and is to become aware of what you feel, what it is doing in your body, and to stop ignoring that. Because that little pain in your shoulder, every time you sit down after behind your desk, that is a signal. It's your body signaling to you, hey, there's something not entirely right. And when you have that, like when you come home from work or come home from your business or you finish your workday and you sit on the couch and you feel exhausted, or in some cases you feel overwhelmed, or you cannot sleep and you keep on moving thoughts around in your head, and very often repetitive thoughts. God, did I have many conversations that I had over and over and over for a week until I actually had the conversation. And it was much easier than I thought it was. So that's the very first thing. To change anything in life, you need to be aware of what you're doing now, so that you can say, okay, this is where I am, this is where I want to go, and this is the gap I need to close. And so it has those two components. Every change has those two components. the current status, the vision, like where do I want to be? And then from those two places, you can say, okay, if I have to close the gap, then how am I going to close the gap? I would also say that if the gap is huge, because that's the next step, right? Oh, but I don't know, I want to lose 40 pounds. So I'm now 40 pounds too heavy, and my perfect thing is 40 pounds here. And people look up to it, and I'm actually, I guess I'm already mimicking that. They look up to it like it's a mountain, and of course it's a mountain. But every journey, there's this famous saying, isn't there? Every journey starts with the first step. And so you take that little step and you lose 1 pound, just one, and you can celebrate that because it's the first step. Nothing in life ever jumps from here all the way to there. Nothing does. And so it's often our expectations and the fact that we are basically feeling that we are not going fast enough, not knowing enough, not having enough, that makes us look at that mountain as something that we cannot get over. While in reality, if you would just take those first steps, it's very often something that is much easier once you're at the top, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Makes sense. And I think, being high achievers, leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs, we're always pushing and we're always, I wouldn't, okay, I'm just going to say it. I don't think we're all that great at celebrating the wins. Like, okay, whoop-dee, 1 pound, woohoo, right? When really we should.
Yes.
Because they're like, I want to hit that 40 or I want to hit that $1 million mark or whatever. Like we're a high achieving leader. But I think there was something that you were mentioning earlier before we started recording that you really implement with the support and knowledge from your mentor, Tony Robbins, of the 2 millimeter wrench. Could you
Yes.
explain that a little bit?
I actually have it hanging right here in front of me. He gave it to me once, so it's hanging right here behind the camera in front
Oh
of
my
me.
gosh.
So so yes, so the 2 millimeter wrench, it's literally this size, and it's a 2 millimeter wrench. So it's and let me make it a little bit less metaphorical. So the idea behind the 2 millimeter wrench is the 1% of growth and change that we can do every day. So if you would take 1% of change, and if you would have a clear goal, because that's important. When you have a clear goal, I'm taking a sidestep here, if you allow me. When you have a clear goal, you are telling your mind where to go to. And what happens very often is that people do not have a clear goal. So they want to have a business and they want to have 3 different niches, or they have, I don't know, they want to have a huge biceps, and at the same time they want to lose those pounds. Now, some of them may help each other in the road towards the goal, but some of them may be sort of splitting and splitting your attention into 2 different things. And what happens is that if you have two goals, and it doesn't matter how clear those 2 goals are, your brain will start moving in between them. And you are basically losing energy in the way from one to the other. Now, what does the 2 millimeter wrench stand for, and that 1% a day? If you have a clear goal and you would change something, any small thing, any habit of 1% a day, after a year, you would end up with a 37% increase. Now, imagine that is 100,000 euros. By the end of the year, you will have 137,000 euros. That's a big difference. Imagine that being 1 million. And so the bigger, of course, the starting point, the bigger the change. But you're not going to get to a bigger starting point unless you already walk that road. And so the 2 millimeter wrench is literally, if you would if you would tighten a screw, I guess it would hit with a wrench, 2 millimeters every day, at some point, the tap would start dripping, would stop or start dripping, depending on what you do. So that's the thought behind the 2 millimeter wrench, is that those little steps of 1% per day, they compound and they will exponentially grow your business or your person, your awareness in a year. And you will be a completely different person after a year, which can be scary, but for most of us is the way to go, because we have to adjust, especially as entrepreneurs and especially as leaders. There's so much going on now with AI, but also there has always been something like that, right? AI is now the latest thing that basically disrupts the standard flow, but there has always been something to disrupt the flow. I mean, when people were still working the land, machines were created that started working the land, and people said, "Oh, machines, that's going to completely remove our jobs," and then it didn't. And people found other jobs. So this is just another thing that disrupts the flow. But as leaders and as entrepreneurs, you are on top of those things, and you get way more of those things towards you that you need to respond to, I guess, right?
So really, you would say a lot of it comes down to being the leader is like the mindset that's going on, the thing between your ears, right? And how you either are setting up a space and container for your team to thrive in or not thrive in. But I think from what you're saying is it really starts with you. And in order to make any other change in the organization, whether you're at corporate or you've got your own. Would you explain a little bit on your theory regarding how all things in business and business problems tend to relate back to personal stuff?
Oh, yes. I have a very strong statement about that. I think every business problem is a personal problem in disguise. And that's, I have, in the 15 years, I have maybe seen from the hundreds of clients that I served, I have maybe seen 2 or 3 that the problem was actually organizational. If as a leader, if things don't work, it's often something in you that limits yourself, but also the rest of the team. And it's people look up to you. People look at you as their example, their visionary, and literally their leader. It's the word that says it. And you have the responsibility to take yourself to a next level so that your team feels safe to take themselves to the next level, right? And responsibility is, it's a little bit of a heavy word, right? People have put a lot of weight into that word, but responsibility, if you dissect the word, it is the ability to respond. And if you look at that, you are put in that position as a leader because your ability to respond to situations, because of your knowledge, because of your expertise, because of your overview, maybe because of your relationships with the rest of the organization, the way you profile yourself, whatever it is, your ability to respond to whatever comes towards you is higher than the ability to respond of the people of your team. That's why you're in that position. That's why they have different responsibilities. So in that sense, it starts with you, with your way, the way you respond to your environment, the way you comport yourself, and the way that people see you, and your confidence, in all honesty. Because we all know that person that comes into the room and looking at their feet, and if you are looking at your feet and if you're not confident and if your eyes are down, it has a physical component as well, another Tony thing, by the way. So it starts with the mind, but there's definitely also a physical component in confidence and in how you look at the world. People that that walk the streets and that look down, they basically let the whole world pass by without noticing it. Same goes for leaders. If you're in a meeting and you're not there and you're not confident and you don't have the posture of a leader, people will eventually doubt your decisions, will have a little bit of a trust thing with that as well.
Would you say
So
that's kind of where some maybe imposter syndrome comes in from the leader?
nice, nice way. Yes, I absolutely. I think, but I think imposter syndrome is a very layered, um, is a very layered mindset. Let's say it's a mindset. It's not something that we choose to have. Let me start with that. If for anybody listening here, imposter syndrome is 70% of the people have admitted that they have imposter syndrome. So there's always a percentage that doesn't even admit it. Honestly, I have not met a person yet in my life that does not have some type of form of imposter syndrome, either in their level now or when they are offered a next level or when they get a new assignment. I mean, I have an example of this, if you allow me.
Yeah.
I've been in this business for 15 years, so I'm pretty confident now. But still, I sometimes have these moments that I think, oh, can I do that? Can I even do that? For example, I remember my first time that I was in front of a camera, the first time on a podcast, the first time I created an online course, all those first times, right? Every time that you move to the next level. And I remember, so one of my clients, and he has been with me now for a year, 5 years more or less. And so he contacted me and he said, "Can you coach me? He wanted to rearrange his businesses and businesses." And so he's from New York, very successful, and had 5 businesses. And he came to me, and I thought to myself, "Oh, but God, I don't know how to do that. I only have 2 businesses. How am I going to coach somebody that has 5?" And but I said it was a really good conversation, and we had this really good connection, and he was willing to do the work. And so just in that introduction conversation that we had, it's like a chemistry conversation that I do. Um, I told him, you know what, if you want to continue with this, I would like you to do this little assignment. And so he did. And so he was super enthusiastic. And he said, "I would like to work with you." So we did. And still are working together. He now has 7 businesses. But that whole mindset of, oh, I cannot, he is here and I'm not, and which coaching doesn't have anything to do with where you are. I mean, the person has the information. I don't have the information. So it's about drawing out the right information of the person who's sitting in front of you. So my mind went crazy for, I think, in between that moment that we had that first chemistry session to the point where we spoke again, which was like a week later. I think I woke up every night thinking, oh, I can never do this, and thinking about all the tools. I have a huge toolbox, and thinking about all the tools that I could apply to his situation, and if they were good enough. Oh, and maybe I should change my format and my stationery to make it look more professional and all that stuff, because maybe it's not that. My mind went in 100,000 directions. I think of all the tools that I thought up at night, in the middle of the night, and woke up from. I think I still didn't use like 90% of them with this particular client. So,
Right.
your mind can do crazy things.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing why we as business owners and entrepreneurs are constantly looking to continue to learn and grow. And we read the books and we are a part of the mastermind groups and we're pushing ourselves to constantly be better because every new level we hit, it's like new level, new devil, right? It's that imposter syndrome
Mm.
kicks in again. And it's like, oh my gosh, I thought I worked on this. I thought I got this part handled. But no, every new level, and if you're going from a 2x to a 10x, it's something new and expanding. This has been amazing. I really appreciate you sharing some of your insight and some of your stories. If somebody was interested in getting a hold of you, what is the best way for them to do that? And do you happen to have a gift for our audience?
So the best way to get a hold of me is via my website, coachingbycarolina.com. And actually, I do have a gift for all the leaders out there. I have an imposter syndrome success pack that can be downloaded from my website, where people can start dealing with that imposter syndrome and find it's a strategy, basically. It's where you get to take the first steps in recognizing that imposter syndrome and eliminating it for as much as you can, at least until you reach that next level.
Yeah, right. And then it's like rinse and repeat. So utilize the
Rinse and
system
repeat.
to support you into the next level, until you hit those new levels for yourself. So amazing. We will have the link to that in the show notes. My last question for you is, what is a takeaway or a memorable note you'd like to leave our audience with?
Well, actually, it's the note that you gave them, the 2mm wrench. Don't forget to do your 2mm twitch every day and find yourself being a whole new person by the end of this year.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to thank our audience for joining us on another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm excited for you to take all these lessons and these resources that you've learned here, implement them, and create even more impact in your world. Until next time, have an outstanding rest of your day. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Creating Powerful Impact podcast. If you are a successful coach, speaker, author, or thought leader who would like to be on this program, simply visit creatingpowerfulimpact.com/guest. If you are someone who got something out of this interview, would you please do me a favor and share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on your socials. Also, if you know somebody that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Creating Powerful Impact. I love seeing all of your posts and great guest selections. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and they really mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more about us? Head on over to our website, graceandeaseproductions.com, or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Just look for Grace and Ease Productions on your favorite platform. Thanks for listening.